Okay, hey everyone. Welcome to the Customer Success webinar series. I'm Scott Slumba. I am the head of Customer Success at Komprise, and with me is Paul Chen, who's the head of Product Management. Before we get started, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background on what this seminar series is all about. So what's happened is in the last year or so, Komprise has started doing a monthly release cadence. And it's worked out really great. It's enabled us to put more features, capabilities, enhancements, et cetera, out there on a more regular basis. Basically, we have a bus coming around the block every month to deliver these new capabilities. One of the challenges, though, however, is that as these new capabilities trickle out on a much faster basis, a lot of them are happening under the radar screen of our customers. So there's a lot of new capabilities in use cases that you have at your disposal, but a lot of folks are not aware of this. So the intent of this webinar series, it's targeted towards our existing customers, and it's just basically getting the word out of a lot of the new features and capabilities, advanced use cases that are at your disposal out of the box right now. So this is not a marketing presentation. It's not a sales pitch. It's basically a nuts and bolts presentation of the latest capabilities from Komprise. Basically the intent here is to make sure that you're getting the best experience using Komprise. With that, the intent of this webinar, we want it to be informal. We want it to be interactive. As participants, you can't audibly ask questions, but there should be a button on the right-hand side of your screen. We can ask questions. And Paul, I think we had some more logistics here on the next page. Next slide. Oh, yeah. So you can enlarge your screen. You get the chat question buttons on the right-hand side of your screen. And this is it's a short session, 30 minutes, but we might run over. And we have follow-on sessions that we'll talk about near the end of this particular session. Okay, and so for today's agenda, the main thing is Paul's going to walk through some of the major new capabilities that have come out in the last few quarters. And then he's got some demonstrations he's going to walk through. Hopefully, a lot of you have seen the new end-of-life policy, but if not, we're going to review that. So basically, let's get you all off of the older releases and onto the newer releases with a lot more capabilities. And then, of course, near the end, we'll have a time for we'll try and answer questions along the way. Please feel free to ask questions, and we'll reserve some time at the end to follow up with any additional questions. And I think, Paul, before you get going, I think we actually have one question already. Is there a call-in number for call-in number to ask questions? Yeah, I don't believe there's an audio number, but there's but yeah, this would be the place. This question mark is where you'd be asking the questions.
Yeah, typing the questions in the question chat is the way to reach us. We'll be monitoring it. There's multiple of us, and we'll try to address them as we go.
Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Paul, and we'll get into it.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Just as a reminder, my name is Paul Chen. I'm the head of product management for Komprise. Many of our customers are using Komprise very successfully. They're using multiple different versions of Komprise. We do have multiple versions out. As Scott mentioned, we're releasing a new version approximately every month. And we do realize that customers adopt on their own pace. We never force anyone to upgrade. But just to give an idea of the major features that have come in since we released version 4.0 last year, some of you may still be on a 3.x version. Some of you are on 4.x. Thank you for upgrading. Just to let you know, the current version is 4.6.1. That's the latest current version. And in fact, we have a 4.6.2 coming out imminently. So you can kind of gauge, knowing what version you're on, how close you are to being current or how far back. This list might entice you to upgrade. You might see something here that's interesting for you, and then schedule an upgrade with our support. So for example, with 4.0, we introduced multi-site support that allows a single Komprise director, that's the administrative console that you log into, a single director to manage multiple sites of storage. We do have customers using multiple directors. They have to log into each one. With this new feature, you're able to set up sites within a single director and manage them all in a single pane of glass. We're not going to cover that today, but if you're interested in hearing more, let us know. We can definitely schedule a session to go over that. Deep Analytics was released quite early on in our product lifecycle in a version in 2.11, but we've been improving it through the releases. One exciting capability is called Deep Analytics with Actions, and I'm actually going to show that later today. And so I'll give you more details on that as we go through it. But it gives you the ability to use Deep Analytics queries to actually take actions on that data, to move it, copy it, or confine it. We're always broadening our support of source storage. Our customers use a wide range of storage platforms. Amazon in particular, being younger and newer, is out there generating a lot of new capabilities and possibilities for storage. And as they move forward, we adopt and make sure we support their configurations as well to give you, our customers, the most options. So for example, they had a storage class called Glacier, which was for cold storage. Then they decided to expand those into different classes where they have Glacier Deep Archive, which is the coldest, cheapest storage tier. They also introduced something called Glacier Instant Retrieval. If you haven't heard of this, you should check it out. It's really interesting. It's almost as cheap as Glacier Deep Archive, but it has the advantage of millisecond access times like standard S3. Now, of course, since it is cheap, you pay more for each egress, but it's definitely a good option if you want to archive data, but you think you might need it. It is cold. Hopefully you don't, so you don't get charged the egress, but it's a great option. They also have Government Cloud. They've had that for a while. We support that as well. And new file systems in the cloud like FSx for NetApp ONTAP. We now support that as well. So as all of our providers of storage move forward, we strive to match them and provide them to our customers. Single sign-on with multi-factor authentication. This is something that came out also in our 4.x line. We have customers taking advantage of this. Obviously, it's great for enterprises where they don't want their users using a Komprise-specific credential, but instead can just log in using their enterprise, for example, Active Directory credentials. We're always striving to improve our support of the protocols that we manage. For example, SMB is a very chatty protocol. It's also a little bit difficult to manage. So we've improved the management of SMB shares with full backup intent support, and that enables you to manage your shares more easily, as well as improving the performance of migration. Performance is always one of the aspects of our product that we're always working on. And specific for SMB, we've done some performance migration enhancements. Related to Deep Analytics, we won't cover the next one today, but it's definitely something we can do in a follow-on session. There is now a specific role that you can give to your users so that they can only access Deep Analytics, but that inside Deep Analytics, they can search, create queries, find data on all the shares and data that they have access to. So you can control their access and they can do deep searches there. And I'll touch on this in today's session on why this is such a great thing. And we'll be happy to give you a demo of it in a future session. And as always, there are continual improvements in the product to performance, scalability, resiliency, occasionally a bug fix or two, those come in. So getting our customers on the latest versions helps them with feature capability as well as for robustness of the platform. So these are some carrots to help you entice you to upgrade. But today, the demo is going to focus on Deep Analytics, tagging, and Deep Analytics with Actions. So with that, let's get right into the demo. I'm going to keep a little header in the background so it gives a little context for what I'll be showing you. But here's the demo. I've logged in. This is a demonstration site of our product. It is the full product, but unfortunately, I don't have access to petabytes and petabytes of real data. So there's a simulator behind the scenes emulating how much data we've got. So all the numbers are made up, but the product is exactly the real product. Now you'll notice you're probably familiar with this as Komprise users. When you log in, you land on the plan page, and we immediately tell you how much data you've got across all your shares and the age breakdown of that data. So as an IT admin, you can get already some really great insights into your data, the ages. You can also get great insight at an aggregate level on the usage tab. And I'm sure many of you have used this. Across all the storage, you can see the breakdown. What's the most popular file types across all your storage? How is the breakdown of files by size, by owners, etc.? Now, what you probably have also noticed is that this is aggregate data. If you then wanted to say, well, I see we have a lot of video files. Can I get a list of those files? That's something that our standard analysis doesn't do, because it has to be very, very fast in order to give you this kind of aggregate data that you can act on. That is why we introduced the Deep Analytics feature. So for those of you who are licensed to use Deep Analytics, hopefully you're familiar with this interface. Deep Analytics is our feature that lets you search for exact files and see those files across all your storage. As you know, as we're analyzing your data, we're crawling through your file systems, we're collecting all the file metadata, and we send that to, it's not a database per se, but it's a service in the cloud that allows us to perform very fast searches across your metadata. And that's what Deep Analytics is. The interface might be a little forbidding, but it was basically built using Amazon retail user interface as a model. If you search in Amazon, you land on their homepage, they show you the universe of things. You can then search for frying pans, and you narrow it down, you see all frying pans, and then you might say, I'm only interested in copper bottom, $50 or less. And as you add more filter criteria, the results you get narrowed down. And that's exactly the model that happens here. When you land on Deep Analytics as an IT admin, you can see all your storage. So in this case, we've got multiple sites: Atlanta, Boston, Phoenix, Santa Fe. You can see all the filers, all the shares across all those sites. Deep Analytics has indexed all those files and very quickly shows you how much data you've got in total, how many files you've got, the age breakdowns. It can also give you aggregate data as well. Where does the data live? Which shares? And we show you a graph with the top few here. You can dive in and actually see the shares all the way down the list. You can export a CSV, so you can get a lot of detail through the reports. You could slice and dice it in other ways. You could see what are the top filers, where the data is stored, file types. These are very similar to the usage graphs that we saw on the plan tab. The difference is you can get the exact files. So for example, there's 10.3 petabytes of data, 120 million files. If you wanted, you can view up to 1,000 of them in the UI. You can download a CSV with 10,000. And we have an API that lets you, if you wanted, extract and get a list in multiple files, of course, of 120 million files that match. Similarly, as you drill down, suppose you only care about looking, what are these video files? Well, now there's only 17 million, and you can also download those results. So as an IT admin, you can see all the storage and start diving in, finding data sets. The interesting thing that I'm touching on is when you give Deep Analytics access to your line of business users, your division users, your department users, your business unit users. You give them DA access, Deep Analytics. They only see Deep Analytics when they log in, and they only see the shares they have access to, but they can do everything within Deep Analytics on that data. So they can search their data, find the data, query the data. And for example, suppose I were the engineering manager. I'm going to log out and now log in as the engineering manager. This person can only see Deep Analytics and can only see the shares that engineering has data on. But now this person can do interesting queries like, oh, okay, I see how much data we've got. Suppose I want to make sure we only find data owned by engineering. And you can see now I'm using Deep Analytics to build a query. So I'm setting the group filter to equal engineering. and the data is being narrowed down. And further, I could say, well, I'm only interested in kind of cold data. So data that maybe was accessed, let's say 2 years ago or more. And we're winnowing down the data. Notice all the data now is 2 years or older. I can see how much data. I could download those files if I wanted. I could get an export. And I'll just give you a quick bird's eye view of what that file looks like, but it's essentially a report telling you the data types, the files, the owners, the sizes, etc. So a lot of information. Again, this download will give you 10,000 of the top files. And if you wanted all of them, we have an API. So the engineering manager can find these interesting files, can save this as a new query. Say it's called engineering 2-year data. And then whenever the engineering manager runs this query against Deep Analytics, they'll get an updated view of how much 2-year-old data they own. Now, what they can do further is say, okay, I'm digging into this data. I see we've got a lot of video files. I'm really interested in these video files. I want to tag these because engineering shouldn't have so many video files. Like marketing, you might expect, but engineering not. So from Deep Analytics, let's move to now the use case of tagging. So we're using Deep Analytics, we're building our queries, we found some interesting data. I want to tag this data so that IT can come back later and perhaps do something with it. Maybe we want to confine it, maybe we want to actually archive it. But if I tag it, it makes it easier for IT to find this type of data. So what I do is I can tag the results of this query. I go up to Komprise tags, I say apply tags. Now I can create tags or use existing tags. I see there are some existing tags already, and tags are always a key value pair. So in this case, I want to use classification, and I look and I see, okay, there's a lot of tag values already. Here's one I want to use, suspect. These videos I want to tag as suspect data and have IT do something with them potentially. So I can classify them as such. I can also invent new tags right here as well. So I may want to see, say, department. And since it's engineering data, I'm going to give it an additional tag that I can use later, my purposes, as the engineering manager. So I'm going to apply these two tags. And note that these tags are being placed in the Komprise Deep Analytics index. It's not touching your file systems. It's not touching your files. There's no change to your data. Your users don't see any of this. There's no action for your end users to take. All the tagging happens within Komprise. And now that I've done that, the engineering manager can say, hey, IT, I created some data and it's tagged with a suspect tag. And in fact, the engineering IT manager may go out and find other queries and tag other data suspect as well, other stuff that the engineering manager finds they're not happy with. So then I'll log out from the engineering manager, and I will log in as the admin. Now, again, as the admin, I see the full product. I go to Deep Analytics, and the engineering manager told me there's data out there that's tagged suspect. So I can now run a query. I'd want to limit it to just the engineering shares because I want to focus on the engineering data. And I can now look at that tag, which was classification, and the value was suspect. So I'm finding the data on those shares that have that tag. Now, there may be other data that was tagged suspect, so it's collecting more than just engineering's suspect data, but now I can see all suspect data. Maybe the marketing team has tagged some data as suspect. Maybe the sales team has also tagged some data as suspect. I can find them all with one tag query. And that brings us then to the last interesting part of the demo, which is actually taking action on those files.
And Paul, before we go to that last piece of the demo, we did have a few questions that popped in.
Okay.
So maybe we should walk through those first. First one was, if you don't know the exact name, do you support wildcarding? For instance, engineering equals ENG star.
Yes, we do support wildcarding. So when I did that example of group equals engineering, you notice we have these regex helpers. So you can say it starts with a certain prefix, ENG, or maybe contains ENGR, or it can be project X, or it could end with, if you know that the group ends with. We do this for all text searches, text-based searches. So groups have these regex capabilities. When you search by owner, same thing. When you're specifying the string for an owner, it can be starts with, contains, ends with, or exactly equals. Same thing for file names. If you're searching for specific file names, they can start with, contain, ends with, or directory paths as well. So for all our text searches, we have this ability of sort of regex wildcarding.
Excellent. The other question was, are there any plans in your roadmap to introduce reporting capabilities from Deep Analytics? Currently to report details to management, take screenshots, things of that nature.
Yes, we did want to get the feature out, so we didn't build in the ability to get like PDFs of these documents, of these charts. We do have customers I know that are using screenshots and dumping them into Word files and Excels, etc. We do have a roadmap enhancement to add the ability to generate PDF reports. I don't have a time frame for it yet, but it's definitely something we're looking at. Thank you for that suggestion.
And one last question on Deep Analytics. For cold data report, does it include ownership, permission, and last access time?
Yes, actually, all of the downloaded reports, when you say, give me the report of the files, it always includes file names, the owner. It doesn't include permissions. Permissions isn't something that we read and display, but you'll see the owners, you'll see the locations of the files. Last access time is in the Excel spreadsheet, and we also bucket them by the age buckets in the user interface. So when you look at the data, right, we have these age brackets, age ranges, which are customizable. Customers can customize these to their liking. So we give you these buckets. I think we also give you the exact last access time metadata.
And another one just popped in. Group search, is that AD security group?
Yes, this is based on if you've got AD integration, the group search is using AD groups, could be LDAP as well.
These are all great questions, by the way. Thanks for bringing them in.
Yeah.
There's a couple questions on migrations also, but let's get through the Casey asked these questions. Let's get through the Deep Analytics demo, and then we do have time at the end for general questions. So
okay,
let's go there for that.
Yeah, I see we only have a few minutes left. So
yeah,
going back to the demo, just to recap, engineering manager said, hey, I tagged a bunch of data suspect. IT, can you confine that data? So IT comes in. There's a lot of data that's suspect. What they can do is save this query as suspect data. It's using that tag, suspect tagged. Now we have a new query called suspect tagged. I can go to the plan. I can create a new plan. And let's call it confine suspect. Add one group. And in that group, I'm going to use a deep analytics query, which was the suspect tagged. It's going to define what shares I'm going to confine from. And I also want to confine the data. It's going to use the same query as the policy for which data to confine. That's all I need to do. I can finish the editing and now activate the plan. And so what I've been able to do is have our line of business users find the right data for me, tell me what I can do with that data. Since I don't own the data as the IT admin, I'm not allowed to move data around without their permission. Now they're telling me all that suspect data you can confine. I activate the plan, and now we're going to confine all that suspect data. So just in quick recap, Deep Analytics allows you to search. You can give access to your line of business partners. They can find data for you. They can tag the data, and then you can act on that tag data within your plans. So one quick thing I wanted to cover as well, that concludes the demo part. I did mention at the beginning of the session, we have a lot of new features that have come in the 4.x line. So trying to encourage you to upgrade. We wanted to remind you also, we have an end of life policy on our released versions. Obviously, this allows us to focus better on maintenance of our current releases. This is sort of standard end of life benefits that companies enjoy. Plus, it helps customers upgrade and make sure they're getting the best experience, the latest features, enhancements, and any bug fixes that have gone in. The policy itself is that standard releases get 12 months of support after the general availability release date, and the current release version is 4.6.1. We do identify about twice a year a long-term support version. So these versions we think are more stable. It's a good place for customers who don't want to upgrade continually. They can park themselves on this long-term release. We will support those for 18 months post general availability dates. The current LTS release is 4.5.1. And we'll make sure to apprise you of any upcoming end of life. We'll do this about 6 months in advance. So we'll announce about it twice every year. The releases that will be coming up for end of life, and to please contact support to arrange an upgrade.
Hey, Paul, one last deep analytics question came in while we were talking. Can the tag be used to move data that matches the tag?
Yeah, absolutely. If the line of business users have tag data, then IT can use that tag, save the query with that tag, and then put that query in a move policy, an archive tiering policy, and therefore archive that data.
Excellent. Okay, Casey, we haven't forgot about you, but let's just finish this the end here, and we'll address the migration question. So thank you, Paul. A lot of great questions. Hopefully that was helpful for y'all. So a couple things. We do have 2 new guides, so we want to advertise that. Assuming your existing customers, most of you have already deployed, but the Quick Start guide on analysis, that's a total revamp of the documentation for analysis. It's very comprehensive, so highly recommend going through that. You might find some new things that you didn't realize you could do. So please take a look there. That's in our KBA library. And then we do have 2 more sessions coming up. So in 2 weeks and then 2 weeks later. So next session, we're going to talk a little bit more about deep analytics with actions. And then finally, the last one is we're finding that a lot of times the configuration of certain people's environments or other environmental issues are not providing the best performance with Komprise. So that last session is going to cover a lot of the best practices, lessons learned, and tips and tricks as far as getting the most out of the performance of Komprise. And Paul, I think is that, yeah, there you go. Okay. Okay, so that concludes the presentation, and then if people want to hang on, or especially KC, there is a couple of questions here.
Yes, I see there's one. How do we handle encryption and data dedupe during migration? So in migration, the use case is that customers have a lot of data on a piece of hardware, a file server. Maybe that's a file server that's kind of old, needs to be retired. There's a newer file server that they want to get the data on. Maybe it's an all-flash modern piece of hardware. The goal of a Komprise migration is obviously to make B, the destination, look exactly like A. And so during a migration, we don't do dedupe at all. I mean, the hardware itself is doing dedupe, but actually we absolutely handle encryption over the transmission. Obviously, if it's inside your firewall, we don't have to worry too much. If you're going across a WAN or something, then it's encrypted on the way as well. And we definitely do checksum hashes to make sure that the data integrity is maintained between the source A and the destination B. And I see a follow-on question about handling SMB share, namespace issues, quota setting, handling. We don't handle the quotas, but we are definitely aware of them. So if while a migration is running, we detect that we're running out of space or quota is running out of space, we'll notify the user in the user interface to let them know there's some issue that may stop the migration, right? They may have to go add space or get more quota. SMB namespace issues, I'm not exactly sure what that means, so maybe we'll have to take that offline.
Okay. I think that's it. All right. So again, hope this was helpful. Thank you for joining, and we'll be doing this again in 2 more weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.